Welcome back to another episode of Silent Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, everyone.
And today we're going to be talking about A League of Their Own. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. Two sisters joined the first female professional baseball league and struggle to help it succeed amidst their own growing rivalry. We are reviewing this movie because of the quote, "There is no crying in baseball," which is the same quote that Tom Hanks used in one of his tweets, which he used to break the news that he had contracted COVID-19 along with his wife Rita. Now they're doing much better. So this movie somehow ties in with some of our reviews that we have done about baseball, and it's actually based on a real league. Let's start off with my review and my pros that I feel when I saw this movie for the first time. I did not know it was based on a real league, and the characters were loosely based on real female players. I just remember liking it because it had famous comedians like Rosie O'Donnell, John Lovitz, Tom Hanks, and even a famous singer like Madonna. And at the time, Madonna was pretty hot. Now that I revisited the movie, I started noticing small details of how the league owners were putting women down and saw that they were replaceable. For example, when one of the league owners visited one of the games and he commented that he's going to miss the girls once the guys come back. That comment meant that once the guys came back, the girls were going to be replaceable. They were going to head back to the kitchen. Like, the league was going to be closed down, so there was going to be no need for them to play any more baseball, and that was it. For him, the girls were just meant to play while the guys were gone, and once the guys were back, they were not meant to be there anymore. Also, I saw that there was a small scene that touched upon the topic of segregation. This is the scene when the girls were practicing and the ball gets away, and one of the girls basically tries to go get the ball, but one of the colored girls, who's a bystander, grabs it and throws it back, and the girl who catches the ball makes a gesture saying that the girl has a good arm to throw the ball, and this hints at the fact that the colored girls were not allowed to play baseball in those times. I thought this was a good mentioning about that topic and during those times about segregation, which moves me on to my cons. All these topics that I've mentioned so far seem to pass rather quickly and do not linger as much as I would like them to. They do not sit there and let you absorb the topics at hand. I would actually appreciate it if the movie would linger a little more and touch a little more about them and mention a few names or something. Of course, this is a movie based on the league, a real league, so mention a few names, even if the characters are loosely based on real characters. And also, how the movie started, I would have liked it if we would have seen the older sister packing but not know why or for what she was packing, and the daughter yet pushing her to basically pack and hurry up. Once the daughter gives her old glove, says, "Don't forget this," that's when we start hearing her narrate the story, and that's when the camera fades out from the present time and fades into a scene of her and her younger sister playing a game of baseball in her younger years. A similar thing, similar to the narration of Titanic, if you remember that scene from Titanic. And the mother's telling her daughter the story of her younger days as they're driving towards the Hall of Fame. I feel that this is a better approach to the movie instead of what they did, and this would have played a better way with the audience, seeing a story from one person, and that's how I felt the movie was trying to lean towards too, especially since it was focusing on the two sisters. Also, I felt that the two sisters did not have as much drama as we wanted to, and it was leaning towards one-sided versus basically a big issue, and the team did not have as much obstacle as we really wanted to see a team overcome in the movie as an underdog, especially when the movie's called A League of Their Own, as they're trying to get shut down. And that's the main idea that we wanted to see, them being shut down and them overcoming that, instead of one scene saying, hey, the league is going to get shut down from one scene, and the next scene we never heard anything from it. We never saw them get any warnings of you're going to get shut down, or we're going to let a few players go, or say you're going to lose your bus, or anything of that sort. And as for a movie, this movie was a bit long. I think Penny Marshall, the director, wanted a series, which she got to produce 2 episodes, but she never produced a whole series. But this movie she got to make It was too long for my taste. I think it was better suited for, I believe, like a Netflix series to be cut up into a few edible episodes to focus on a few characters per episode. But as a movie, it's too long. It doesn't go anywhere as a whole movie. The movie's everywhere, scattered. It doesn't focus on any particular character at any certain time. I love Penny Marshall. Unfortunately, she's not with us anymore, so she can't really, unfortunately, take her projects and pick them up anymore. Fortunately, she passed away in December of 2018. For as much as I would like to see this being picked up, I don't want it to be picked up because I don't want it to be ruined by anybody else. Penny Marshall had a vision, and I don't want anybody else to ruin her visions. So I'm going to leave it at that and pass it on to my friend Touly and see how he saw this movie and see what grade he gave this movie.
So this was my first time watching this film. I didn't know that it was based on any historical reference, but with that being said, I'm going to treat this as its own entity and not base it off any historical facts that might have been brought into the film. In terms of being a sports/comedy sort of film, I think the movie was okay. Movies like The Longest Yard, Remember the Titans, I would go even as far as to say Happy Gilmore, movies that revolve around sports or take sports and sort of blend into the storytelling and, just have fun with it with the comedy aspect. This movie, I feel like it did its thing. It had the components that are typical in those sort of films for me. But I feel like, although this film, I do feel like it's good, I feel like it was lacking that extra something that maybe some of these other films that I spoke of, that those movies have, in terms of getting me on board in terms of how they were gonna resolve some sort of tension or the sort of conflict these characters were dealing with. The movie did touch upon some of these stuff, but they never followed suit or followed up on these things as strongly as I would have wanted to. One example, and I think the most obvious one, is how they wanted these players, how they wanted these women to not just play baseball, but to act as women as well. And because of that, they showcase scenes where these women were being trained to be women, how to act like a woman, how to look like a woman. I guess it goes with the time because the film took place during a period where, as the film alluded to, when war was still happening, and America needed some sort of comfort that they could rely on for entertainment or whatever. And I guess, the whole introduction of being woman-like and still playing baseball was their idea, sort of going this route. And of course, when this was brought upon the women who got selected to be on these teams, they did show some sort of resistance. But after that, after being shot down just because either they would do what they were being told to do and get to play baseball, or just go back home and be easily replaced by those who didn't make the team. That could have been something that I would have liked them to pursue, because it really did, in a way, made it seem that these women were treated as just not necessarily objects, but like as some sort of business commodity. In comparison to some of these other films that I've brought up, those films had some sort of conflict that I could just grab onto and say, okay, I want to see how this unfolds. Here, that was a concept that I thought I could latch onto and see how these women would kind of resist that or go along with that as the story goes on. But that didn't transpire. So that was something that was a letdown to me. Other examples where the movie could have sort of brought some sort of conflict, and another easy one too, is the rivalry between the two sisters. They made it very clear at the beginning of the film that the younger sister was not as talented as the older one. But because the recruiter wanted the older sister to play in this league, the only way for the younger sister to have been a part of this was to agree to the fact that she would convince her older sister to come along with. So everything was sort of riding on the older sister having always to be there. They already shown how maybe jealous the younger sister was, and they should have ride this throughout the film, I feel like, if they were going to go through that social commentary of women acting as women still while playing baseball. That in of itself would have been a great way to just have me on board and say, okay, how are these sisters going to deal with one another throughout the film, and to what level is one going to have to go to in order to maybe come out on top at the end. They should have not put the two sisters on the same team. That's one thing that I thought about when the film got to that part. just given how competitive both sisters were, I would have just liked that competitive nature to have come out if they were just split apart. But they did that, I think, too late in the film for me to kind of get on board. And when the younger sister came out on top, it didn't have that sort of impact that it should have had they just established this way at the beginning and just kept going to that well. Tom Hanks is another character in this film who I thought they highlighted way too late into the film, because we could have gotten to know more about Tom Hanks' character if they had introduced us earlier into the film to see the type of guy that he was, and maybe see him change little by little throughout the film as he got to know more about his baseball players. Maybe he should have been a part of the recruiting process, wasn't treating the process as seriously as he should have been, and just see him, as a skipper as time went by, that these women can actually play baseball. So that, me seeing that would have convinced me that the transition would have been more believable, and I would have been more engaged in Tom Hanks' character. Those are sort of the things that didn't quite hit the mark for me. There wasn't that conflict that got me on board and wanted me to know how it would be resolved. It was pretty much, to me, a film about baseball. Like I said, it's fine. The film did its job in terms of being a comedy film. They have moments where things were really outrageous. And it did highlight part of like being a mother too during baseball, with one of the ladies bringing her son on the trip and just annoying the heck out of people on the bus, causing the driver to quit. And then we get Tom Hanks kissing the instructor or whomever. Yeah, very outlandish stuff like that to be expected of a film like this. But in terms of like the conflict, I wasn't sure where it was, and I was never able to latch onto that. To me, I would say that's my biggest problem with the film. And because of that, I think the pacing, and because of that, I thought the duration of the film was quite too long too, if there wasn't like a conflict for me to get on board with. I mean, normally these films run around 2 hours because they need to establish characters and conflict and still deal with the sports aspect of it all. So I could understand why these films are sort of long. But for this film to be this long and not have me on board and not have like a conflict for me to sort of ride on, I feel like the film could have been like 20 or 25 minutes less in duration. But in the end, I still say it's an okay movie, and I'm going to give this film a 6 out of 10.
I totally agree with you on that end. I really wanted the story between the two sisters to have more conflict, to be more dynamic instead of just basically be one-sided. I did see more of it to be leaning towards the younger sister pushing the rivalry more than the other side. I saw also Tom Hanks' character be lacking in development. Also, let me put this out there that these characters are loosely based on real characters. The league itself is a real league, but not to say that these characters are based on real exact characters. They're loosely based on real characters that were out. But the idea is that the league itself was a league of their own. I really wanted to see more. It just felt like the idea of itself was, for example, like Touly said, the problems it faced, it felt like the problems came up and then they got solved right away. For example, one of the owners said, hey, we're having trouble selling tickets. Boom, the next scene is like you see a bunch of people in the stands. It's like, whoa, that was easily solved, To me, I really wanted to see that they were about to get close. They didn't have enough money. They went from playing in stadiums to being out in like open fields. They needed to struggle, I know it's this loosely based movie from real facts. So if it's loosely based, why not push the envelope a little more, The acting was okay. I felt that the acting was carried by a few people. Let's say Tom Hanks was one of the characters, Rosie O'Donnell and Madonna. There were really chemistry between Rosie O'Donnell and Madonna that played really kind of well. The two sisters, I just needed more chemistry between them. That's basically what I wanted. The length of the movie at the same time, like Touly said, to me, it felt like it dragged on. Cut it, drop some scenes. So for me, it comes out to the same score as Touly, 6 out of 10. It is what it is. And again, the same quote, there is no crying in baseball. So I guess this does it for this review of A League of Their Own. Please join us next time when we are going to review Police Story.
Lock him in the cells. Yes, sir. Book him. For murder.
Until he got set up.
Get in!
Now his whole police precinct is after him.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.